Arthur Conan Doyle, The Hound of the Baskervilles. Chapter 7. The Stapletons of Merripit House. Part 1. The fresh beauty of the next morning helped us forget the dark and sad feeling that our first night at Baskerville Hall had left in our minds. As Sir Henry and I sat at breakfast, the sunlight came in through the tall windows and made soft patches of color from the coats of arms on the glass. The dark wooden walls shone like bronze in the golden light, and it was difficult to believe that this was the same room that had filled us with such sadness the evening before. "I guess it is ourselves and not the house that we have to blame," said the baronet. "We were tired from our journey and cold from our drive, so we saw the place in a gloomy way. Now we are rested and well, so everything looks cheerful again." "And yet it was not only imagination," I answered. "Did you, for example, hear someone, I think a woman, crying in the night?" "That is strange, because when I was half asleep, I thought I heard something like that. I waited for some time, but there was no more sound, so I decided that it was only a dream. I heard it clearly, and I am sure that it was really the crying of a woman. We must ask about this at once." He rang the bell and asked Barrymore if he could explain what we had heard. It seemed to me that the butler's pale face became even paler as he listened to his master's question. "There are only 2 women in the house, Sir Henry," he answered. "One is the scullery maid, who sleeps in the other wing. The other is my wife, and I am sure that the sound could not have come from her." And yet he lied when he said this, because after breakfast I met Mrs. Barrymore in the long corridor with the sunlight shining fully on her face. She was a large, calm, heavy-faced woman with a hard and serious mouth. But her eyes, which showed the truth, were red and looked at me from swollen eyelids. It was she, then, who had cried in the night, and if she had cried, her husband must know it. Yet he had taken the clear risk of being found out by saying that it was not so. Why had he done this? And why had she cried so bitterly? Already this pale-faced, handsome, black-bearded man seemed to be surrounded by mystery and darkness. It was he who had first found the body of Sir Charles, and we only had his word for all the events that led to the old man's death. Was it possible that it was Barrymore, after all, whom we had seen in the cab in Regent Street? The beard could easily have been the same. The cabman had described a slightly shorter man, but such an impression could easily have been a mistake. How could I settle the question forever? Clearly, the first thing to do was to visit the Grimpen postmaster and ask if the test telegram had really been given into Barrymore's own hands. Whatever the answer might be, I would at least have something to report to Sherlock Holmes. Sir Henry had many papers to look at after breakfast, so it was a good time for me to go on my trip. It was a pleasant walk of 4 miles along the edge of the moor, and it finally brought me to a small grey village, where 2 larger buildings, the inn and Dr. Mortimer's house, stood higher than the others. The postmaster, who was also the village grocer, clearly remembered the telegram. "Certainly, sir," said he. "I had the telegram delivered to Mr. Barrymore exactly as directed." "Who delivered it?" "My boy here. James, you delivered that telegram to Mr. Barrymore at the hall last week, did you not?" "Yes, father, I delivered it." "Into his own hands?" I asked. "Well, he was up in the loft at the time, so I could not give it into his own hands. But I gave it into Mrs. Barrymore's hands, and she promised to give it to him at once." "Did you see Mr. Barrymore?" "No, sir. I tell you he was in the loft." "If you didn't see him, how do you know he was in the loft?" "Well, surely his own wife should know where he is," said the postmaster angrily. "Didn't he get the telegram? If there is any mistake, Mr. Barrymore himself should complain." It seemed useless to continue asking questions, but it was clear that, in spite of Holmes's clever trick, we had no proof that Barrymore had not been in London the whole time. Suppose it were true. Suppose that the same man had been the last person to see Sir Charles alive, and the first to follow the new heir when he returned to England. What then? Was he working for someone else, or did he have his own dark plan? What reason could he have for troubling the Baskerville family? I thought about the strange warning cut from the main article of the Times. Was that his work, or was it done by someone who wanted to stop his plans? The only possible reason was the one Sir Henry had suggested, that if the family were frightened away, the Barrymores would have a safe and permanent home. But surely such an explanation was not enough to explain the deep and careful plans that seemed to be forming an invisible net around the young baronet. Holmes himself had said that no more complicated case had ever come to him in all his long series of famous investigations. As I walked back along the gray, lonely road, I prayed that my friend might soon be free from his other work and able to come and take this heavy responsibility from my shoulders. Suddenly, my thoughts were broken by the sound of running steps behind me and by a voice calling my name. I turned, expecting to see Dr. Mortimer, but to my surprise, it was a stranger who was running after me. He was a small, thin, clean-shaven man with a neat face, fair hair, and a long jaw, between 30 and 40 years old, dressed in a gray suit and wearing a straw hat. A tin box for plant samples hung over his shoulder, and he carried a green butterfly net in one hand. "You will, I am sure, excuse my boldness, Dr. Watson," said he, as he came up to me, breathing quickly. "Here on the moor, we are simple people and do not wait for formal introductions. You may have heard my name from our mutual friend, Mortimer. I am Stapleton, of Merripit House." "Your net and box would have told me that," said I, for I knew that Mr. Stapleton was a naturalist. "But how did you know me?" "I was visiting Mortimer, and he showed you to me from the window of his surgery as you passed. As we were going the same way, I thought I would catch up with you and introduce myself. I hope that Sir Henry is not worse after his journey." "He is very well, thank you." We were all rather afraid that after the sad death of Sir Charles, the new baronet might refuse to live here. It is a lot to ask a rich man to come and live in a lonely place like this, but I need not tell you that it means a great deal to the local people. Sir Henry has, I suppose, no superstitious fears about it?" "I do not think that is likely." "Of course, you know the legend of the terrible dog that haunts the family?" "I have heard it." It is surprising how easily the local people believe such things. Many of them are ready to swear that they have seen such a creature on the moor. He spoke with a smile, but I felt from his eyes that he took the matter more seriously. The story strongly affected Sir Charles, and I have no doubt that it led to his tragic death. But how? His nerves were so weak that the sight of any dog might have had a deadly effect on his sick heart. I believe that he really did see something like that on his last night in the yew alley. I was afraid that something bad might happen, for I was very fond of the old man, and I knew that his heart was weak. "How did you know that?" "My friend Mortimer told me." "You think, then, that some dog chased Sir Charles, and that he died from fear because of it?" "Have you any better explanation?" "I have not reached any conclusion." "Has Mr. Sherlock Holmes?" For a moment the words took away my breath. But when I looked at the calm face and steady eyes of my companion, I saw that he did not mean to surprise me. "It is useless for us to pretend that we do not know you, Dr. Watson," said he. "The stories about your detective have reached us here, and you could not praise him without becoming known yourself. When Mortimer told me your name, he could not deny who you were. If you are here, then it follows that Mr. Sherlock Holmes is taking an interest in this matter, and I am naturally curious to know what opinion he has. I am afraid that I cannot answer that question. May I ask if he is going to honor us with a visit himself?" "He cannot leave town at present, He has other cases that need his attention. What a pity. He might bring some light to what is so dark for us. But about your own investigation, if there is any way in which I can help you, I hope that you will ask me. If I had some idea of your suspicions, or how you plan to examine the case, I might perhaps, even now, give you some help or advice. I assure you that I am simply here to visit my friend, Sir Henry, and that I need no help of any kind. Excellent, said Stapleton. You are quite right to be careful and quiet. I see that I was wrong to interfere, and I promise that I will not speak of this matter again. We had reached a place where a narrow, grassy path left the road and went across the moor. On the right there was a steep hill covered with stones, which had once been used as a granite quarry. The side facing us formed a dark cliff, with ferns and brambles growing in its cracks. From behind a distant hill there rose a thin, gray line of smoke. A short walk along this path across the moor will bring us to Merripit House, said he. Perhaps you will give me an hour so that I may have the pleasure of introducing you to my sister. My first thought was that I should stay with Sir Henry, but then I remembered the pile of papers and bills covering his desk. I could not help him with those, and Holmes had clearly told me to observe the neighbors on the moor. I accepted Stapleton's invitation, and we turned together onto the path. It is a wonderful place, the moor, said he, looking around at the rolling hills, long green waves with sharp granite rocks rising like strange white foam. You never grow tired of the moor. You cannot imagine the amazing secrets it holds. It is so large, so empty, and so mysterious. You know it well, then? I have only been here 2 years. The local people would still call me a newcomer. We arrived shortly after Sir Charles settled here. But my interests have led me to explore every part of the area, and I believe that few men know it better than I do. Is it difficult to understand? Very difficult. Look, for example, at this great plain to the north, with those strange hills rising out of it. Do you notice anything special about it? It would be a fine place for a gallop. You would naturally think so, and that idea has already cost several people their lives. Do you see those bright green patches spread thickly over it? Yes, they look more fertile than the rest. Stapleton laughed. That is the great Grimpen Mire, said he. One wrong step there means death for man or animal. Only yesterday I saw one of the moor ponies walk into it. He never came out. I saw his head for a long time stretching out of the mud, but in the end it pulled him down. Even in dry weather it is dangerous to cross, but after these autumn rains it is a terrible place. And yet I can find my way to the very center of it and come back alive. By George, there is another of those poor ponies. Something brown was rolling and struggling among the green grass. Then a long, suffering neck rose up, and a terrible cry echoed across the moor. It made me feel cold with fear, but my companion seemed calmer than I was. It's gone, said he. The mire has taken him. 2 in 2 days, and maybe many more, because they get used to going there in dry weather and do not see the danger until the mire catches them. It's a bad place, the great Grimpen Mire. And you say you can go into it? Yes, there are 1 or 2 paths that a very active man can take. I have discovered them. But why would you want to go into such a horrible place? Well, do you see the hills beyond? They are really islands, surrounded on all sides by the impassable mire, which has slowly moved around them over the years. That is where the rare plants and butterflies are, if you are clever enough to reach them. I will try my luck there one day. He looked at me with surprise. For God's sake, put that idea out of your mind, said he. Your death would be my fault. I assure you that you would have no chance of coming back alive. I can do it only because I remember certain difficult landmarks. Halloa, I cried. What is that? A long, low cry, very sad and strange, passed over the moor. It seemed to fill the whole air, and yet it was impossible to tell where it came from. It grew from a soft sound into a deep roar, and then fell again into a sad, trembling murmur. Stapleton looked at me with a curious expression on his face. "Strange place, the moor," said he. "But what is it?" "The local people say it is the hound of the Baskervilles calling for its prey. I have heard it once or twice before, but never so loud." I looked around, with fear in my heart, at the wide plain marked with green patches of grass. Nothing moved across the large, empty land except two ravens, which cried loudly from a rocky hill behind us. "You are an educated man. You do not believe such nonsense, do you?" said I. "What do you think causes such a strange sound? Bogs sometimes make strange noises. It is the mud settling, or the water rising, or something like that." No, that was a living voice." "Well, perhaps it was. Have you ever heard a bittern making its deep call?" "No, I never have. It is a very rare bird, almost extinct in England now. But anything is possible on the moor. Yes, I would not be surprised if what we heard was the cry of the last bittern. It is the strangest and most frightening sound that I have ever heard in my life. Yes, it is rather a frightening place altogether. Look at the hillside over there. What do you think those are?" The whole steep slope was covered with gray round circles of stone, at least 20 of them. "What are they? Sheep pens?" "No, they are the homes of our ancient ancestors. Prehistoric people lived in large numbers on the moor, and since no one has really lived there after them, we can still see their small buildings just as they left them. These are their huts without roofs. You can even see their fireplaces and sleeping places if you want to go inside. But it is like a whole town. When did people live there?" "Neolithic man. There is no exact date." "What did he do?" "He kept cattle on these hills, and he learned to dig for tin when the bronze sword began to replace the stone axe. Look at the large trench on the opposite hill. That is his work. Yes, you will find some very interesting things on the moor, Dr. Watson. Oh, excuse me for a moment. It is surely Cyclopides."